to the Medtech Women Podcast. My name is Jess. I'm a Senior Staffing Associate at MDJ Partnered Solutions. We are a staffing solutions business supporting medical device and biotech companies globally. And having worked within the industry for over 18 months now, I noticed a slight lack within the gender diversity. And I'm very passionate about helping women either enter the industry or further their career. This has led me on to making the Medtech Women Podcast by MDJ, where I speak with a number of females within the industry to help get knowledge, advice, and inspire confidence onto females just starting out their career. And today I'm joined by Jane Theaker, the CEO of Kinomica. So thank you so much for joining me today. Could you tell me a bit more about your current role and what led you up to being the CEO of Kinomica?
Yes, well, it's been quite a long path, actually, Jess. So my current role is CEO of Kinomica, and just to tell you sort of how I got here, I started out and I did a degree in biochemistry, and that led to me getting a job as a biomedical scientist at Hope Hospital in Salford, and I was at the bench using diagnostics day in, day out for patient benefit. And that was really great because it gave me a real understanding of how diagnostics are used in hospital laboratories and the sort of typical patient journey that you might have. And then I joined Zeneca Diagnostics, which at that stage was, basically they were working on a new technology based around PCR, so DNA diagnostics. And when I was at school, I'd got the best careers advice I ever got, which was from my chemistry teacher. She was a very young chemistry teacher and quite fresh out of college. And she turned to me and said, "Go into DNA, it's going to be huge, Jane." And I must be literally the only person that got good careers advice from my school teacher, because everybody else gets told to be, a zookeeper or, a shepherdess or whatever it is. But my teacher said, "Go into DNA, it's going to be huge." And she was absolutely right. So when I got the chance to join Zeneca Diagnostics, I did. Whilst I was there, I invented a technology that was later spun out to create a company called DXS that was eventually acquired for $130 million by QIAGEN in Manchester. So that technology that I co-invented, proved to be pretty exciting and pretty groundbreaking and disruptive at the time. But I stayed on with Zeneca and then joined AstraZeneca, where I did a lot of technology development and technology evaluation, and also had a family as well. So I knew I wanted children, and I also wanted to combine that with work. And, I was able to do that at AstraZeneca, and they were very supportive, let me work part-time, 3 days a week and 4 days a week. And then when the children had got a little bit bigger, that really enabled me to think about, spreading my wings a wee bit. And I decided to leave AstraZeneca, which was a big move, and join DXS that had just been taken over by QIAGEN. And when I joined them, I joined as a senior scientist and was put in charge of the early stage development group there. So developing companion diagnostics, these were for blue chip pharma. For QIAGEN, that taught me so much, lots about how to lead a team, lots about how to develop a diagnostic. It really was the most wonderful experience, and I'm very grateful to QIAGEN for giving me that experience. And also to all my colleagues. They were fantastic colleagues, still are fantastic colleagues at QIAGEN. And then I left in around 2015, joined the laboratory of the government chemist as Vice President of Genomics there, and that was a very different job. So involved with ag bio, looking at the genomics behind seeds and seed science, really groundbreaking, exciting stuff, but a very different sort of arena from what I'd been involved to up to date, which was the sort of patient companion diagnostics. And then I left them a few years ago and set up my own consultancy, and was asked to do some due diligence on Kinomica, actually, by the investors who were thinking about investing in Kinomica. And they showed me the data from their technology, and as soon as I saw the data, I thought, this is going to really change the world. This is going to change how patients are treated and diagnosed. And when they asked me, would I be interested in heading it up, I was just so thrilled and excited to do that. So that's how I became CEO of Kinomica, really.
Yeah, and can you explain a little bit more about what Kinomica do?
Yeah, so Kinomica are focused on providing cell signalling profiles to the pharmaceutical industry. And those cell signalling profiles can be used in a number of ways. They can be used to identify new targets, new drug targets, to figure out resistance mechanisms. You know, in oncology, if you give one drug, quite often that stops working after a while, and you have to figure out, you know, what drug can I put this patient on to keep their cancer at bay. And we can use our technology to look at those sneaky workarounds that the cells use to get round the drugs and potentially use a different drug. You can also use our technology to look at mode of action studies, toxicological studies, but really importantly, I think, and this is where it sort of hits the bedside and becomes really disruptive, is to figure out which patients are going to benefit from a particular drug. So that gets you into the whole stratified medicine and precision medicine arena. So the technology it's a platform technology. You can use it across the sort of drug discovery, development, and you know, into the launch of a drug. But we tend to use it at the moment to support discovery and mode of action studies with our pharma clients.
Okay, perfect. And I know you mentioned when you was in school, your teacher told you that DNA was going to be massive. Is that what drew you into the medical technology industry, or was it for other reasons?
Well, I had two choices. I could either go into languages, and I sort of thought it through logically and thought, well, I'm good at languages. That's great, but I probably there's more of a sort of career progression I can see with the sciences. So that sort of drew me first of all, just logically thinking about where I could go, and then also the careers advice, as you say, that's so important. So, you know, the advice I would give to people is to listen to their chemistry teachers, the young teachers particularly, because they'll have been in academic institutions, they'll have done their degrees recently, and they will know what's hot and what's going to be driving forward industry and sort of new technologies going forward. And the one thing I would say, sort of going forward, my prediction really is data science and proteomics is going to really drive the medtech world. So if you can get into data science, bioinformatics, that's going to be huge going forward.
Yeah, I agree. I've seen the industry blow up about that recently. So if we take it right back to the beginning of your career in biochemistry, was there many females in your class, or was it very male dominated?
Well, funnily enough, biochemistry was about 50-50. So that was great. I think where it sort of changed and the gender diversity, I could see that split, was when I joined industry and I realised that the people at the bench tended to be women and the people with the more senior roles tended to be men. And I don't think it was deliberate. I genuinely think it's because of those inherent biases that we have within our culture that we tend to believe men more, and they tend to have a sort of credibility that we don't actually give to women, and that's as a society, and it's everybody's problem to fix that. That's a personal viewpoint, but I really do feel that it's about making sure that men and women are both working together to remove those inherent biases from the way that we interact with each other.
Yeah. And I know you mentioned it was like a 50-50 split, but in some science-related uni courses, there is more of a male dominance. Do you think there is anything that could be done to attract more women into science-related degrees?
Yes, I think it's partly about the environment you grow up in, isn't it? So I grew up in quite a sort of science and technology focused environment, and you know, my father was an electronics engineer, and he was always talking about, his work and how interesting it was. And I think we can do a lot with our children, when we have children, about just explaining how exciting science, technology, STEM subjects are, and getting that engagement, because science is a really creative area, and also it's incredibly collaborative, and those are just the sort of skills that women and men have, and I see it working beautifully when you've got a really engaged group of men and women working together, collaborating together, and there's no gender bias there. But we can do a lot with our children, I think, around just turning them on to the possibilities within science and STEM subjects.
Yeah. And I mean, you've now been in the industry for about 30 years now. Have you noticed a difference in more women being in the industry?
I think I'm noticing a difference in terms of more women getting more senior roles, and I think that's a really great thing, and that's really a lot driven by men in senior roles deciding that they've got their own daughters and sons, and they realise that recruitment bias is not healthy for anybody. You're not getting the best out of your workforce. It's not good that men feel that there's that pressure on them to be the wage earner all the time. And if we can just spread that load a little bit more equitably, and the responsibility a bit more equitably, then everybody wins. So I think it's being driven a lot by men, actually, and that's a great thing. It's really fantastic to see.
Yeah, 100%, I agree. So what actually made you want to be CEO and smash through that glass ceiling? What made you want to progress to that further bit in your career?
I think it's having the ability to take those decisions. Obviously, you have to make sure that you're reporting into the board, because your board, everybody has a boss, so you always have to report into somebody. But being able to take those decisions with the team and really take the company forward in kind of a way that would change the world, quite frankly, that's what really inspired me. I can really make a dramatic difference to patients' lives here. And, I have a fantastic team here that can support in doing that. And, they know what they're doing. They're experts. They're, have this deep expertise in cell signalling. That just was so appealing to me.
And do you feel like you've had to work harder than some of your male counterparts to get where you currently are?
I think you have to have a lot of positive self-image. That's the thing. As women, sometimes we don't have that positive self-image. We feel we should be doing better, or we have this sort of imposter syndrome, or just a feeling that we're not quite good enough, and everybody around us is just that little bit better. And I think the best thing you can do is basically encourage yourself and have that sort of inner voice that says, no, you're doing okay here. It might not be right at the moment, but you're learning from this experience. It doesn't matter where you are, you're going to learn from a particular experience, even if it's going horribly wrong. Experience is a series of places you'd rather not be. And that's one of my favourite phrases, because whatever that experience is, you're learning from it and you can take it on to your next role. So really, I think it's more about trying to keep that sort of inner self-talk going and having that positive self-image that you sometimes get through the sort of wobbly moments in your career.
And did you have anyone to help you along the journey? Did you have any role models that helped you with your positivity? Or
I think one of the best ones is actually my mother. So she always had sort of quite a feminist viewpoint that you can do whatever you want, Jane, as long as you work hard enough. And also when I had the children, because children, if you're looking after children, it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, that definitely means that you have to prioritise what you're doing in terms of your work-life balance. You have to, because the children have to come first, and it's right that they come first. So when I sort of complained to her that it's really hard, Mum, sort of balancing the kids and work, because it is really hard. she just said to me, Jane, women have been trying to balance childcare and work since time immemorial. Just, remember there were cave women trying to balance the work-life balance and trying to figure out how they did things. You just get used to it. Try and put in place the best support network you can to allow you to do what you can. And it was one of the best things she said to me, because I realised, I wasn't alone. There were centuries of women behind me who'd had exactly the same problems, going back to Roman times probably, when they were trying to juggle childcare and work. So that was a really positive message to give me.
Yeah, I think it's always great when you have a positive support bubble. I think it really helps you along in your career. So do you think that's the best piece of advice you ever received during your career, or is there another piece that stands out for you?
Another one is get a cleaner. Because it's just practical advice. When you come home from work and you're absolutely shattered, you've had a really terrible day, and you come home to a house in a tip, it has a bit of a psychological effect, doesn't it? Whereas you come back and the house is at least clean, then you feel like you can sort of cope with things a bit better. So definitely get a cleaner, get a good childminder or a good childcare in place if you've got children. Try and marry a supportive partner. If you've got a supportive partner, that's wonderful, and I'm very lucky that I do have a very supportive partner. So don't think you can do it all by yourself. Make sure you put together the sort of plan that you need to be able to cope with the work-life balance, is what I would say.
And how do you think you find that work-life balance? How do you cope with stress?
Well, I think that the most stressed out people in the organisation are not the CEOs. The most stressed out people in an organisation are probably the people who are trying to deliver at the coalface. And, the CEOs swan around with a piece of paper trying to look important, quite frankly. I think it's far more stressful, trying to deliver, for example, a science project where, your machine's broken down, or the samples aren't extracted in the right way and something's gone horribly pear-shaped. That's really stressful, far more stressful, than whatever a CEO would have to deal with. So I think what I've learnt is, we just need to be, in teams, we probably need to be really kind to each other and try and support each other as much as possible.
Okay. And so if there was a woman looking at this interview right now and she wanted to be a female CEO, what advice could you give to them?
I would say network as much as you can. That external network to your job role is very important, and very important to your next career step, whatever that might be. Cultivate positive self-talk and resilience so that you get through the negatives and see them as a learning experience and a positive, actually. And find yourself a very supportive partner. Those are the 3 pieces of advice.
And so if we go back to when you first started your career, if you could go back in time, what one piece of advice would you give yourself?
Probably would have worked harder at university instead of going out drinking so much.
That's a good piece of advice. But I mean, everyone's got to have fun sometimes, like we mentioned, the work-life balance.
Yes, I think I took it to an extreme at university, but yes, that you're absolutely right. But I think probably I would have worked a bit harder at university, but I don't think that's held me back.
Okay, that's good. And so is there anything else you would like to add? Any final comments, any piece of advice you'd give to women starting out their career or already halfway through their career in the industry?
I would say talk to people, people who are sort of visionary, find out where the trends are, and do that sort of horizon scanning and figure out where are going to be the next hot places that you need to be uniquely positioned in, that you will have a unique skill set that will fulfill some sort of demand. So that's what I would say. Do a lot of horizon scanning and talking to people about what's hot.
Okay. Well, perfect. Well, thank you so much today for your time today, Jane. It was a pleasure speaking with you, and it was great to get your knowledge and advice into the industry.
Oh, thanks, Jess. It's been lovely talking to you as well.